and ignorance of the country. Transport to and from, labs and farms, whether it's the biomass. And again, we're talking about the semis. I mean, these trucks, depending on the, how much you're squashing things down and whatnot. And yeah, I mean, you can fit like 20 to 40,000 pounds in a semi. And that's about like 10 acres worth. So, yeah. At least I think I have those numbers right. Don't quote me on it, but just check your shit is all I'm saying. Transport with trimmers. If you're going to have like a trimming crew and you're going to be doing a bunch of, hand touch-ups, removing crow's feet, or you want your stuff hand trimmed because it's top quality flower. Do you have parking for your 10, 15, 20, people to come there? Do you want them to come there? Would you rather just send a bus, everybody park under the bridge and we'll fucking come pick you up type of thing? Your field labor throughout the season. You can have anybody walk in the fields, checking for bugs, picking leaves, checking drip emitters, sprinklers, if you're going to be top dressing, spraying, all of that. Security transport for things like, your pounds, your distillate, your isolate, your crude oil, anything expensive, your money, armed transport, shit like that. I mean, it's, you're talking about a lot of money here. Transport even further, people are talking about using trains and railroad and even planes. We're just, filling up a couple private jets, flying all their product here or there, just because they can fit like a couple 100,000 pounds in there. I don't know. Pretty interesting though. What else can you do? You can get it on the pre-rolled cigarette market also. Essentially packaging. You're basically packaging stuff up for farms. I mean, that's a huge avenue where, if you can either bring people there or if you've got a dedicated warehouse with a license and you've got pre-roll machines or you've got cigarette stuffing machines or, whatever it is, getting involved into the physical packaging. Even if you're packaging up, and weighing out eighths. And I know they've got machines and shit that can do that, but we're not talking about that. If you're going to do it on your own, I mean, at the very least, you can still get involved there because it's labor, and I've done it, and it fucking sucks, but it's necessary. What else? Tourism. Fucking tourism. Man, my buddy does Med Tours LA. Dwayne Cofield with the Drug Dealers and Businessmen podcast. He's got a cannabis bus, and his job is to basically sell seats on his bus, and he advertises in there. And then he takes people on cannabis tours. He takes them to various festivals, and you can smoke in the bus and all kinds of crazy shit. They got edibles, whatever. But getting involved in that, I mean, that's huge. So if you're in the Southern California, LA area, check out Med Tours LA. And if you're, you like podcasts and shit and you like this one, I would definitely recommend the Drug Dealers to Businessmen podcast. Again, Dwayne Cofield, he's the fucking man. So check his shit out. What else we got? I guess on the other tourism thing, I mean, something that might be nice is getting, and a lot of farms, they really want to have a really nice place where they can hold weddings and parties and maybe even little mini concerts. Getting involved in that, seeing if there's room for, cannabis themed this and that to actually be held at specific farms. I mean, they do it with wineries and stuff, so why not cannabis? Marketing. The cannabis industry is like our Achilles tendon has basically been fucking cut when it comes to marketing. We can't market in the same ways that we used to be able to, and that every other business can. For instance, every time I post something about selling seeds on Craigslist, gets removed. You try on Facebook, gets removed. You try on Instagram, gets removed. I've posted ads on Instagram where, I'm just trying to send somebody to my website, and they say the landing page the landing page sends people to like illegal drugs or some shit. Let's try to send people to the profile. Like, oh, your profile supports illegal drugs and all this shit. Instagram, they'll delete pictures, they delete posts. Like one of my partners, Golden Hill Grower, he anytime he posts anything related to our stuff, it gets removed and flagged. It happens, and so you have to be creative about it. So one of the ways that I just saw this like yesterday or maybe even today. Definitely one of the more creative ways I've seen somebody advertise was they had their dog basically tearing up a pound of weed. And it was just like, oh, my dog's having more fun than you. Or my dog has more fun. And it had, like 20,000 views and like 100, 200 comments or something. And I was like, God damn, that's clever. There was no mention of cannabis, nothing like that. It was just, but if you paid attention, you could see it. You have to be clever. And so if you're a social media person or you're just clever about shit like that, or you're, ways to be subtle, there's a huge market for that, especially currently, like if you can get in it now. Because obviously as things start growing, I mean, that's going to kind of go away. Oh, it won't actually. Actually, yeah, that kind of goes down into culture. I'll get there in a second. Irrigation, HVAC, plumbing, electrician, all of those are huge industries within the cannabis industry. Everybody's using, water, electricity, air conditioning, dehumidification, humidification, standard plumbing. I mean, if you can design all that, if you can fix it, if you make sure to market yourself as quote unquote cannabis friendly or 420 friendly, you'll get a lot more interest, I'll say. What else? If you can build greenhouses, and greenhouses are super easy to build, but paying people to put it up, take it down, having all the right tools, that's a big deal, especially because there's greenhouses all types of sizes, and some of them cover acres, some of them are just for us like a 30 by 96 is huge. It's like just under 3,000 square feet. Down to even the little hoop houses where, like the ones that we built, like 10 by 60s. Just knowing how to build all types of greenhouses and setting them up for people. That'll save them a lot of time, but, it gives you an area to kind of get involved in the industry. Potters and potting machines. And even filling flats of everything, like, oh fuck, some of these guys they're filling a lot of pots, and there's been some ingenious ways I've seen done it, or it done, I should say, but I mean, hell, you could even add that to the field labor and stuff, and if you want, to hire people to physically come and pot up, and just literally fill pots with dirt. I mean, you might even be able to round up the homeless population and give them a fucking job. No bullshit. It's, man, like that labor intensive, or shit. Like, even if you were selling soil, if you could offer somebody, as a, like, not only will we sell you, X amount of yards, we'll come pot it up for you. Holy shit. I'd go to you all fucking day. Oh my god. Education. Okay, that's a big one. Bud tending. We talked about education earlier in the retail section. But I can't stress it enough. Like, when you go to a dispensary, that's who you're talking to, the bud tender. And most of them, they're all good-natured. Most of them are good-natured. Some are smarter than others. And really, they need to be the smartest people in the room. I mean, if they're going to be the ones selling cannabis, like, they need to be there, and like anytime the farmer comes, I mean, they just need to know everything. They need to understand the differences between, hydroponic and aquaponic and living soil and bottle-fed nutrients and top-dress nutrients and K&F grown and modern natural farming grown and beyond organic and regenerative, and the differences between sun-grown and greenhouse and indoor, just everything. I mean, they need to be able to communicate this and educate the customer. Like, the customer does not want to be educated, in the sense of, like, they're very rarely going to go out and educate themselves. But they are waiting to be, swooped off their feet. They if they're coming there, if they're coming to your store, they want to be impressed. Like, they want their experience to be fucking off the charts. And teaching bud tenders and even if you're teaching retail establishments how to sweep people off their feet using words and communication, that's a oh my god, maybe I need to do that. Fuck. Cultivation, the home grow, the commercial grow, again, the hydroponic, the living soil, the biodynamic, the regenerative agriculture. All of that's a big deal, because when you go into standard schooling at the moment, you're taught more of the chemical molecule based cultivation, which relies on using salts and basically feeding the plant, opposed to feeding the soil. And you need to, somebody needs to be teaching all that. There's a bunch of great books out there. Plus, at the same time, while you're going through this education, at least in terms of the cultivation side, there's no way that the person learning all this stuff will not see the similarities between them and their life. And that's really where our, what we've coined, like, our full spectrum living with Mellow Moose Farms. The way that we cultivate, the way that we try to teach, the way that we're just trying to live our lives is essentially the same way that we grow, and realizing the connections and the relationships between the small and the big, and the similarities between the small and the big. How humans are just like microbes, and how, our plant, which is really, again, and I've said it before and I'll say it again, the plant is the graded test of your soil's ability to harbor life. That's what a plant really represents everywhere. Whether it's in good soil or bad soil, it shows you the soil's ability to harbor life. And that's what we do as humans, as microbes, essentially. Like here in America, opposed to quote-unquote like third world countries. Some countries' infrastructure is just not set up to harbor life very well. And a lot of that is maybe because the plant that we're growing here in America tends to choke out the plants in other places. Kind of like, a lot of plants. There's certain plants that you don't want in your garden because they'll choke out other plants. Other plants, you just can't plant them by this because they affect another plant differently. I hope you're seeing the connection and everything. Education regarding trimming. There are different ways to trim. There are different tools for trimming, different purposes. And not everybody can trim. Some people trim fast, some people trim slow. Some people love it, some people hate it. Extraction is a big one. Extraction is going to be a huge, huge area for education. A lot of people use quote unquote like hydrocarbons and shit, or butane or propane, versus ethanol and or supercritical CO2 or fats. I mean, there's a lot of room for it, and even getting involved into isolates and distillates. Pest management. Pest management needs to be a prerequisite to cultivation almost. There's all types of ways of managing pests. Ideally, the best way to manage your pest is by growing a better plant. The healthier your plant, the more resistant it is to pests, and physically, a pest may not even recognize it as food. feeding it, things like silica can help improve like the cellular walls and make it so that the epidermis or the skin is so strong that like bugs physically can't bite into it. But then going and discussing the differences in harmful pesticides and natural pesticides and homemade pesticides, and then predatory bugs, and microbial sprays, and then getting into like digestive enzyme sprays. And there's room for education. I mean, there's a lot to it. I mean, I'm actually like right downstairs. I'm making a digestive enzyme spray that I'm making it from scratch, and it's all R&D. But the idea is that like Dr. Zymes and a lot of other enzyme formulas, they utilize digestive enzymes, and so by looking up a bunch of foods that are high in digestive enzymes and then blending all of those together and then fermenting those and then adding a little this and that, and mixing it with water, that's the test. And for me, being able to make things on site as needed, at a much cheaper rate than buying a product is huge for my margins, and margins in general. So pest management is big, especially for this next subject, which is nursery operations. How do you water 10,000 plants? Do you water it the same? Do you water it one by one? Hopefully not. What about workflow in a nursery? What about, setting things up and, so that plants start here and end up here, and then they go out that door instead of having to physically walk all the way the fuck back, down the greenhouse, and incorporating lean production, so that, if you think of your footsteps as like a penny, every time you take a foot, or a step, you spend a penny. Every step, that's another penny. Every step, that's another penny, because you're getting paid by the hour or something like that. So trying to limit the amount of steps that you have to take by having things planned out and set up properly. Same thing, with just farm operations and making sure that the flow goes correctly. If you've ever worked in a kitchen or ever waited tables, sometimes you gotta, like when you're behind somebody, you gotta say behind you, to the right, to the left, duck, just being aware of shit like that. And what else were we talking about? As far as I guess going into the education and to the culture side, because this was the next subject, was culture. And I just wanted to go back to the marketing and remind you that these two things kind of play a role. Culture it's very different right now in the cannabis industry. First off, it's huge for sales if you can identify with the culture and specifically the people that are, buying from you and your demographics, but also understanding that there are multiple cultures clashing right now. There's the old school cannabis culture, hippie culture that is really responsible for what we're enjoying right now. Our parents essentially that put in the hard work and allowed cannabis to get to a medicinal point and then continue their support and momentum and helped get everything to the recreational point. There's them, the OGs in the game. There's people like us who are like myself that have been, ever since I was in it. But, I'm not OG like that. It just, my parents weren't all in, we're not third, fourth generation growers. Everybody in my family has basically sold or done something, but we're from Texas. A little different, but then there's also but even said, like, the new cannabis culture, I guess I should say. All the dabbers, fucking potheads and shit. Then the new, I want to be cool cannabis culture. The folks that are like brand new, like brand spanking fucking new, or open to it now that it's legal. And then shit, even a little subsection of that, like the conservative group who like still like, I don't fucking know about that recreational weed shit, but they'll use CBD or something because it's legal now, or they use it as like a medicine, and they're open to it because it's legal, but politically they don't really align with any of the other things that we align with. Try not to alienate anybody. But just being aware of the different types of culture that are involved and how the demographics kind of play into that, and making sure that you're aware that, well, people that come from this place or this era, they may want different things. Like some types of flower may not sell because they're just not educated enough. Or maybe flower doesn't sell well at all, and it's only dabs and fucking extracts and shit. Or maybe it's only hash, or hash doesn't sell at all. Right now, like pens, carts, that's big. But it's also separated, the cannabis flower from, unfortunately, I guess let me back it up. It's separated cannabis from the flower that it is. It's put it into some, I don't know. It's made it like a toy. Just all of a sudden, there's chicks fucking, I guess there's always chicks taking pictures, but it's, I don't know, it's become sleek and like an iPhone. And people are trying to always, we got to change the vaporizer game. We're changing the vape game. We're changing the cart game. It's just a fucking mode of transportation. That's it. It's like changing the joint paper game. I don't know. I smoke joints, I guess. If you come out with something better, great. But it's not like it's changing the game to the point where people are switching. The main reason people are using all these, the pens and vapes and shit, is because they're convenient and they're easy to hide. Plus, half the time they don't actually smell like weed, but other times it just smells like fucking dank. So anyways, just paying attention to the culture and being able to educate people on the various types of culture, and that really plays into sales. Another opportunity for making money, unfortunately, is the real estate game. Knowing different properties, knowing zoning, knowing what's available, what's not available, knowing landlords and who might be willing to, partner up with something, selling growing supplies, anything farm related, especially if it's cannabis focused, big deal. Packaging, again, if you can, actually, and more specifically hemp based packaging, that's a whole industry that really needs to be established. Again, the boxes, the bottles, all of that. But even again, if you're able to package stuff up for people. And I guess the last thing is, man, I keep coming back to it. Even if you can help people turn their hemp into products by finding other, by finding the actual manufacturers that are able to do it, and so that maybe your business is just a sourcing business, or just putting things together business. That's fine. But right now, there's a lot of legwork that needs to be done in all areas of this all of this industry, in order to really make the connections happen and to really allow things to really flow. Dams have to be built, dams have to be destroyed, streams have to flow again. And trying to make those connections for people, I think, is going to help out in the long run, because now you're setting up different points of revenue for people, and that will compound into various types of revenue streams. So with that being said, I think that's about it. Thank you for listening to the How to Start a Cannabis Farm podcast. I'm sure we'll have another episode soon. Again, don't forget to check us out, howtostartacannabisfarm.com, mellowmoosehempntx.com. Appreciate it. Have a good one.